The last time a major government decision made the news, it probably happened because someone did something wrong or dumb. But imagine a headline where no one can figure out who made the decision at all. There is no signature on the document, there is no internal memo, no name shows up in the official meeting minutes. You just see the final output, a contract is awarded, a welfare benefit is denied, a new policy rolls out. Somewhere upstream, deep inside a software system that no one fully understands, the actual choice was made. But it happened long before any human ever sat down to review it. We would usually treat this as sci-fi, but I think we should be paying more attention. For years, tech experts and ethics researchers have warned us about a specific turning point. They said that governments would eventually hand over real institutional power to automated systems. Most people heard that and thought, it won't be my problem, as they assumed it might happen decades from now in a far, far off place. But that future arrived in September 2025, when a sitting prime minister named a virtual AI platform as an official member of the national cabinet. And no, this was not a PR stunt. The system received a real portfolio and it manages real public procurement decisions and processes, real contracts using taxpayers' money. Every leader in every sector should pay attention to this right now and start entertaining the thought that this could, after all, become the new normal. Ignoring this trend will mean being caught completely off guard. If you treat this as a strange story from a small country, you will be flat-footed when the same technology lands on your boardroom table, your regulatory framework, or your company policy. I understand why governments and large companies are rushing toward this technology. The logic makes a lot of sense. Automated systems reduce human error. A computer program does not get tired at the end of a long week. It does not have a cousin who runs a local construction company. It doesn't care about political pressure, informal favors, or old-school networks. Historically, public contracting has been highly vulnerable to corruption pretty much everywhere. A machine seems to fix that problem instantly. Then there is the sheer scale and speed. A good system can scan tens of thousands of pages in seconds. It checks bids against strict rules and delivers answers. It does all of this at a fraction of the cost. There is also a hidden benefit that people often overlook. It seems a powerful message to the public. When an organization hands a job over to a machine, it signals that it wants to remove human bias from the loop. For groups struggling with a bad reputation or heavy scrutiny, that signal is incredibly valuable. Sometimes the boost in public trust is worth more than the efficiency itself. So the motives are clear. The appeal makes total sense. But when something is too good to be true, it's usually because it isn't. And therefore the question is, what happens to accountability? We often think our biggest challenge is technical. We ask if the machine can make accurate decisions. We wonder if the data is clean and so on. And, don't get me wrong, those are fair questions, but they are the wrong place to start. The real question is about architecture. When a machine makes a serious decision, who takes the blame if it fails? This is where the entire system breaks down. Human systems of accountability rely on a basic rule. Somewhere in the chain of command, there must be a person who can suffer the consequences of a mistake. You can fire a person, you can sue them, you can put them in front of a committee or a court of law. This threat of real consequences is what makes institutional decisions legitimate. When you swap out human judgment for machine execution, you do not just change the process. You destroy the very framework that makes the decision valid. Now let's look at how this plays out in real life. Suppose an automated system gives a multi-million-dollar contract to the wrong company. Maybe it happened because of bad data, a software bug, or a hack. Who do you hold responsible? Do you blame the coders? Do you blame the oversight committee? Do you blame the politician who bought the software 2 years ago? Under our current laws, the honest answer is no one. No single person is positioned to take the fall. The blame is spread so thin that it completely disappears. Technology isn't at fault here, but the inadequacy of the legal system definitely is. There is also another aspect that would benefit from more attention. The strongest argument for AI in governance is that it stops human corruption. In a narrow way, that is true. An algorithm doesn't take a briefcase full of cash. It doesn't answer phone calls from old college friends. But a machine can still be corrupted. The corruption simply moves to a different part of the system. Instead of cash under the table, someone alters the training data. Instead of bribing an official, someone changes the code that ranks the evaluation criteria. Instead of a biased manager, you get a biased model. That model then pumps out unfair decisions at a massive scale, completely out of sight without leaving a paper trail. And look, I'm not speculating here. Security researchers have already shown how people can rig these systems. They can poison data sets to favor certain companies. They can tweak mathematical ways to ensure specific outcomes. They can exploit hidden flaws in the software if they have technical access. There is a massive difference between human corruption and machine corruption. Human corruption leaves footprints. It requires relationships, phone calls, and patterns that investigators can track down over time. Machine corruption is built directly into the system. Once it is in the code, it runs quietly and constantly. It is also much harder to audit. Most leaders who oversee these programs do not have the technical skills to know what questions to ask. At the end of the day, we are not getting rid of corruption, we are just making it smarter, faster, and much harder to catch. Now, you might think the solution can't be that hard to implement. We just keep a human in the loop to sign off on every final choice. Well, I've spoken about this issue before in other fields, like bank loans and hiring software, and my answer is no. It is but a comforting myth. It allows organizations to feel safe while leaving themselves still completely exposed. A human reviewer is only useful if they have three things at the same time. They need the right data to evaluate the machine's choice, the time and the mental energy to think about it critically, and finally, they need the organizational power to say no without causing a massive corporate argument. In reality, reviewers almost never have these three things at the same time. The human worker usually just sees a final score or a recommendation on a screen. They do not see the math behind it. They do not know what options the machine threw out or why. They are too busy rushing to meet a deadline. Meanwhile, the software makes it incredibly easy to just press approve and move on with an apparent sense of relief. In that environment, the human is not a safety check. The human is but an expendable pawn. They are there to protect the organization if the machine makes a mistake and take the blame when things go wrong. At this point, you might be wondering, okay, how do we actually fix this? Well, I'd start by defining exactly which decisions a machine can make alone, which ones require human override, and which ones must stay strictly human. Tech companies shouldn't be the ones drawing those lines. They must be drawn by leaders who understand both the technology and the human risks involved. Next, we have to balance the effort it takes to agree or disagree with the machine. If it takes one click to say yes, it should take exactly one click to say no. We also have to embed human values and ethics right into the code. We can't afford an AI trying to guess what's best for us. It has to know with laser precision. And finally, everything has to be transparent. Any system with real power needs regular independent audits by people who don't work for the tech vendor. These audits can't just check for basic accuracy, they must actively test for bias, track who has access to the code, and look for security flaws. Without that independent checking, our trust is completely blind, and that is never a good thing. I don't see this approach as particularly radical. To me, it's just common sense at scale. The shift we see in government contracting will soon spread to your industry. The question is not whether you will deal with this challenge. We have established here that you will. So the question is whether you will have a plan ready or if you will be scrambling when your first major system fails. The financial sector is already using AI to make loan decisions every day. Healthcare is moving quickly too, using algorithms to guide patient treatments. Corporate compliance and risk management are also adopting automated tools. In every case, the technology moves faster than the rules. That is the clear pattern of the recent years. Systems get deployed before the safety nets are ready, mostly because deployment makes money and governance does not. The leaders who break this pattern will set the new benchmark. They will be the ones who refuse to launch a system until the guardrails are built. The leaders who rush ahead will eventually find themselves standing before a board or a regulator. They will have to explain why they gave real power to a machine they could not explain, could not audit, and could not control. And I don't think the answer will be convincing. What this era of tech experiments proves is that our biggest hurdle is not technology. It is the structure of trust. When we hand authority to a machine, we are not erasing bias, we are simply relocating it into the code where it is harder to see and change. True delegation requires that a person somewhere can be held responsible for a mistake. Until we build our systems around that fact, every automated tool is just a hidden liability waiting to break. Alright, that's all for today. If this episode made you think about your own organization's setup, leave your comments below. If you want to dig even deeper, the full article that inspired this episode is available on my website. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already and share this episode with your network. Ciao!